Tuesday, July 11th, meeting of the Board of Selectmen. We've just completed our executive session and are back in open session. I'll note that our fearless leader is at another meeting and is expected to join us momentarily, but in the interim, you're stuck with the B team. So, anybody have announcements or updates? I will simply note that there's an important meeting going on now at Boston University regarding the Commonwealth Avenue Bridge Replacement Project. The meeting started about half an hour ago and is taking place at the Sleeper Auditorium, 871 Commonwealth Ave. For more information about the project, see the town website, but it's an impactful project that's going to be taking place over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to affect traffic patterns and I think pretty much everybody in North Brookline. Do we have public comment? Nobody signed up, and I don't see a rush to the microphone, so I will assume no. Moving on to the miscellaneous calendar. Question of approving and awarding a contract for backfill, closure, and reuse of the town landfill with J. Bates & Sons, LLC. Mr. Ditto.
Good evening. So in the mid-90s, the town embarked on the process of closing their front and rear landfills. And after 20-plus years of public meetings and contracts, we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. With this contract that I hope you award and execute tonight, we will be able to close the rear landfill and meet all our obligations the DEP puts on us to close the rear landfill. On June 8th, we received bids for the back landfill closure and reuse project. We were very fortunate. We got 7 solid bids, and a little bit it came within budget. And that's John J. Bates & Sons, LLC. They're well known throughout the industry in landfill closures. Our consultant, CDM Smith, checked their references and found them to be exceptional, and they have dealt with them before. So we're very happy to have them hopefully on board. We expect to issue a notice to proceed tomorrow, and next week have a pre-construction meeting, and we'd like to get going by the end of July or the middle of August. Anticipate this taking probably one construction season, so a year from now we should be through. I'd just like to take at this time, I'd like to acknowledge Jay Hershey. Jay was a project manager, project engineer, and the chief cook and bottle washer of this whole project. Without him, I wouldn't be here tonight. He did a fantastic job keeping this budget in line and this project within the time frame. So it's really, he's my right-hand man. Okay.
Any questions or comments? This is a big contract and a big milestone. This has been going on since I've been involved in town government.
Why
it's a little bit
gets a bad name as these things take so long, you know. But
yeah.
Hopefully this will end it and
this is it.
Clean it up to the best of and move on.
It's a little bit bittersweet, you know. You get attached to this project, and it's hard to accept that it's going to be over.
But we will. We're not going to be that nostalgic.
Yeah. And we're still on track with Mass DEP to sign off. They continue to be happy with the plans and
yes, and the 24th they'll sign off.
Okay, so should I move that we award and execute the contract for back landfill closure and reuse project with J. Bates & Sons, LLC in the amount of $3,692,154.25. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green. Aye. Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations. Well, we'll have another congratulations when it's done. Maybe we'll have a party. Next item is a question of awarding a contract for the Hammond Street drain relief. Mr. Ditto again.
Yes, again, about a year and a half ago, we received a couple of complaints of the residents in the Gleno Road, Pine Road, Woodland Road area of flooding. And particularly the 25-year storms, they really received a lot of stormwater in their yards. We started an investigation. We cleaned the lines, TV'd them, all in that area, and we discovered that there's a restriction downstream from the sites that are causing the backups. And actually, the restriction is on the land of Beaver Country Day School. The town has a 20-foot wide sewer and drain easement that runs through the school property, which this line runs in alongside. So we did our calculations, and we found that if we put a 200 feet of 36-inch relief drain in the section on the Beaver Country Day, we should take care of all the flooding problems in that location. We put a contract together. We received 7 bids, and a low bidder was A.D. Piolini, LLC, and the references were fine. They are working in town as we speak, and we've had a very good relationship with them and look forward to executing this contract. We anticipate this taking about a month, so we won't be interfering with Beaver Country Day School when it starts in September.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
Are we responsible, does this easement goes under the building, is that what you said?
No, that
Under the
easement,
building? It goes underneath the Beaver Country Days building?
yes, the easement runs, if you're familiar with the Beaver Country Day, there's softball field,
Yeah.
and it runs parallel to that lot line, then it goes through the the cemetery, and then eventually daylights over in the Sawmill Brook, actually on Newton Street.
So are we responsible for, if we're going to dig it up and put this new piping in, then we're responsible for fixing it over again, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I'll move that we award and execute the contract for Hammond Street Drain Relief with A.D. Paolini, LLC, in the amount of $83,500. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller? Selectman Green? Aye. Selectman
Aye.
Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next item is an extra work order for $46.77 and 50 cents for a contract with Mario Susi and Son for repair of concrete sidewalks.
So this spring, we received a request from the residents at 375 He Street to put in curbing and sidewalk. They want to utilize the town's sidewalk policy where if they agree to pay half the cost, the town will do the other half. And that's the situation here and why we're looking for a change order. So this $4,677.50 was to put in curbing, both on He Street and I think it's Jefferson, as well as concrete sidewalk. This is a part of the sidewalk policy, and we're glad to see people taking advantage of it.
Okay, questions? I'll move that we approve the extra work order number 2 in the amount of $46.77 pursuant to the DPW contract with Mario Susi and Son for the repair of concrete sidewalks. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a contract for cultural wayfinding signs. Is anyone here for that one?
No, not yet. I think there may be some folks down at the advisory. Let's.
Okay, well, so we'll skip that. Now it's solar net metering with Navitas for solar developments being constructed at the Woodland and Roslindale MBTA stations.
Thank you. David Janakakis, Chief Procurement Officer. I'm here this evening to ask for the approval and authorization for a solar net metering agreement. This is with Navitas for the solar canopies being constructed at Woodland and Roslindale MBTA stations. Our energy broker, Bay State Consultants, came to us with this opportunity, and it is basically, we would be able to get credits for the solar use for our electricity costs over a 20-year period based on these two projects that are going to be built in these two MBTA lot locations. This is very similar to the agreement that was signed by the City of Cambridge. It's an opportunity to save nearly $100,000 for each year, I believe, in our electricity costs once the project is up and running. And obviously, it is a very good green and solar opportunity for the town to take advantage of without specifically building anything. Those type of projects are separate from this, and those continue on in separate situations. Also tonight here is John Shortsleeve, if you have any questions from Bay State Consultants, and hopefully we can answer any questions that you have.
Question I have is, this sounds a little too good to be true. Is it?
Where's the other shoe?
What are the risks?
So the Massachusetts has very favorable subsidies. We negotiate these contracts both in Mass and Connecticut, and the subsidies here add up to about 40 cents a kWh. Down in Connecticut, they're about half that. So it is a pretty good deal, but it's a reflection of the subsidies that are in place around here. I think the risk is that you don't want to buy credits you can't use. You can only use these credits to pay your electric bill, and so you want to size this kind of a purchase well below, and this is around 10% of your electric budget.
And this is within that, I presume, Mr.
Right.
It's the Eversource portion of our bill, is that correct? The delivery portion?
So it's the portion of the bill that you pay to Eversource, and you can pay, you always pay Eversource for the delivery and transmission charges, and I frankly forget, but if you'd like, you can also bill your supply charges through Eversource, in which case you can use it for that too.
I see. Okay. So I do have a question in terms of, are we the only ones who are taking advantage of this particular solar array at Woodland and Roslindale?
You're the only off-taker for these two arrays at Woodland and Roslindale. They're 2 of 37 that are being set on T lots around the greater Boston, and there are a bunch of other communities buying the off-take from those others.
And so this is on land owned by the T,
Yes.
and soon the T is getting some benefit from this.
The T decided to lease the parking lots to Navitas, to have a simple land lease rather than get involved in the complexities of a net metering agreement.
I see. But the parking still goes on.
Yes, that's right.
It's the covering.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay, any
So
other?
we're supporting public transportation as well as,
That's true. Keeping the cars cool.
yeah.
That's right.
All right.
So why Brookline as opposed to Boston? Why Brookline as opposed to the municipality in which the
Right.
arrays are located?
Right. Well, so we've been the energy broker for Brookline since 2003, and we had been looking for these types of projects. It was hard to find them inside 128. It was easy to find them out in Western Mass and Southeastern Mass, and that's where we've done most of our work. We ran a procurement for Cambridge, trying to entice people to bring projects to Cambridge, and including bringing sites. And we got no responses. And So I just began, trolling the folks that had provided these services, Western Mass and Southeastern Mass and in Connecticut. And we ended up with this deal with Navitas. And they then said to me, where else can we do some more of this work in Eversource NEMA? And so I picked up a phone called Brookline.
Okay.
So are there other projects, are you suggesting there are other projects on the horizon?
No, these are the two available that are remaining.
Okay.
Okay, sounds like,
So we have no cost associated with this?
There's no cost, so that it's a little bit complicated. So the answer is there are no cost, but what you're doing is
you identify us.
What you do is these credits are worth 24 cents right now, and that goes up and down every year. So what you're doing is you're buying 24 cents credits for 12 cents. So yes, you're making a payment, but you only make those payments after you see the credit materialize on your Eversource bill.
so we have no risk on the solar array itself.
There's no technical risk whatsoever on the solar array, no.
Okay.
Can I nitpick this agreement? I always look at the indemnification provisions, which
Sure.
is 16.1.
Right.
In the definition, it says 15.1.
You caught us. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you want to do with that?
No, I assume they'll fix it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
typo.
Right.
no big
It's a
deal.
scrivener's error.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I will move that we award and execute a solar net metering agreement with Navitas for solar developments being constructed at the Woodland and Roslindale MBTA stations. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you.
Let me just say thank you to those who came up with this. This is a terrific way to increase our efforts at climate change. And, as you know, we've put into this community aggregation program, which is
Right.
going very well. And this is a significant deal. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let me come back to the the cultural wayfinding signs. Ms. Steinfeld, is that you? Or? Okay. Then
Andy
I'll,
Martin.
excuse me?
I'm-
Yeah, Andy presented that to us, I don't know, 6 months to a year ago. So we'll hold it. And so the next item is question of authorizing the chair of the Board of Selectmen to execute an amendment to the memorandum of understanding with Chestnut Hill Realty. I can talk about it. As everyone knows, we've been involved in discussions with Chestnut Hill Realty pursuant to the Hancock Village litigation matter, and the discussions originally anticipated being ready to go for the May town meeting, and then we thought we'd be having a special town meeting in September. The discussions have taken a bit longer than I think all of us have expected. Now we're looking to go, and this is, I'm hoping, is really the last time we're doing this, to extend it to the November town meeting. And this is the technical agreement that says everyone agrees to hold off and give us the time to go to the November town meeting. So it's pretty straightforward, it just extends the time. Any questions, comments? So I will move, therefore, that you authorize the chair to execute an amendment to the memorandum of agreement with Chestnut Hill Realty. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Oh, and we have a temporary wine and malt beverage license for the Olive Connection for a wine class to be held on Sunday, July 30th. And we've reviewed
So the paperwork and the memo appear to be for a different date than what's listed on the agenda.
Yeah,
So-
what happened was that we had previously approved this for a separate date, and they indicated in their memo that there was to be a rain date. And so we're just putting this back on for
Okay.
your consent for a different date.
So the paperwork looks to be in order, and the police department has said they see no reason to oppose the license.
Great.
Okay, so I'll move that we grant the temporary wine and malt beverage license, malt alcoholic beverage sales license, to the Olive Connection for a wine class to be held on Sunday, July 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at 1426 Beacon Street, and this was originally approved on June 27th to be held on Saturday, July 8th, and the police department has approved the new date. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green? Aye. Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And let's move to, I don't know, should we, okay, let's just do the reserve fund transfer. Okay, yeah, okay, so let's do let's do Mr. Ward. Let's do Mr. Pat Ward first, sorry. Pat Ward is asking for a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $31,512. Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Town Administrator, I'm here before you tonight asking for the $31,512 from the reserve fund because we significantly underestimated the number of early voters. That starts from there. We were talking, in our estimates, we were talking probably a maximum of 5,000 to maybe 6,000, when in fact we had 12,000 early voters that participated. That in turn caused a lot of problems in terms of personnel hours and meeting the mandated requirements that are required under early voting. So we knew that significantly right away, and we were in contact with the town administrator's office about it, and were advised that wait to the end of the fiscal year to see what can be mitigated out and see what the final numbers are. And the final number is the $31,512.
So are there other elections where what other elections are we going to have to do early voting?
Right now, early voting is only associated with the biannual state election. So every state
So
election.
next year?
Correct.
So we'll,
And it's still in flux. I mean, there's been a lot of, as I was driving over here this evening, I was thinking about maybe getting involved if there's a working group, because there's a lot of disconcern from a lot of the clerks because it requires a lot of hours, a lot of money, a lot of personnel, and it didn't significantly raise the turnout, which is what they had hoped for. We try to do it the right way, and it costs us. And I'm not quite sure that we would go down that path again, having multiple access points and doing it on weekends. It's something to consider, but
it was very popular with the voters.
it was very popular. It was primarily popular with the disabled and the seniors. They took advantage of it rather than wait in long lines. We had 12,000 early voters, and we had about 17,000 regular voters on election day. So,
Of the 20,000, how many were seniors or disabled?
of the 12,000, we don't do that kind of diagnostic, but from a visual point of view, I'd say probably half, if not more.
Did they
a
mostly
lot
go
of
to
disabled
town
people.
hall, or did they mostly go to other places?
Primarily town hall. The primary access point was town hall, even though we were at the Putnam Library and the senior housing up on Pleasant Street. The primary access point was town hall.
Maybe that's one way to move in the future, is to have it.
Sure. I'm open to suggestions
I
because,
I'm just saying, you know, if that's where most of the people voted, and,
correct. We thought the right thing to do was to, you know, because it is, even though we're only 6.5 square miles, we're a pretty congested community. We thought that making it available in South Brookline and North Brookline, as well as the town hall, was the best avenue. It was a costly decision to make. And if the intent behind early voting was to stimulate more voting, it failed. Because I think the number was, I looked at it, I think we had 12 more voters this presidential election than the previous presidential election.
Really? Wow.
only 12?
Only 12. Oh, we had 29,000 some odd, but, you know, it was only 12 more from the previous presidential election.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Interesting.
So there's been a number of studies done and surveys. I suspect that before we get into the biannual election period again, that decisions will be made from the Secretary of State's office as well as the legislature. And hopefully I can get myself involved to come up with the best approach for Brookline anyways. You know, we were, as far as towns go, we were the largest turnout in early voting. There was none higher. And in terms of, if you look at the Division of Local Mandate, what they did is they made a decision that some of it was reimbursable, but not much. And we were probably rated 7 out of all the communities of using the optional costs that were not reimbursable. So we need to take a look at that. I mean, unless Brookline wants to commit to the same avenue that we went down before, it's expensive. Requires a lot of people, and if they don't change regulations, it would require a lot more.
If, so you say we had the most, was that the most in raw number or in percentage?
In raw number, yes.
Selectman Franco?
Can you just say a word about these 2 randomly selected audits that we were subject to? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, the omnibus election reform law that included early voting also includes an opportunity for the Commonwealth to review basically our work product. And they do that by a random audit. And I think there's a percentage they pull out, but there's quite a number they do that they will do every state election. We just happen to have 2 pulled. You know? They do a random selection, and we had precincts 15 and 16 that were selected.
Okay. So why don't I move the approval and transmission to the advisory committee at the request of Town Clerk Patrick Ward for a reserve fund transfer amount of $31,512 for expenses associated with the election personnel. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green. Aye. Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let me, I saw Mr. Martineau. Let's just do that. This is the wayfinding signs.
Evening, apologies, I was waiting for the live stream and then realized there was no live stream downstairs. So, apologies for that. Andy Martineau, planner for the town. Some of the board members may recall that I provided staff support to a wayfinding task force a little over a year and a half ago. The task force met over the course of a year with a consultant to devise a family of wayfinding signs, uniform signs standards, and we're now at a point where we're moving forward with fabrication for the first round of wayfinding signs, working with DPW and staff from other departments that have some wayfinding needs for our cultural destinations, parks, golf courses, et cetera. And so this contract is with Boston Sign Company, who demonstrated that they'll be able to produce quality signs at a reasonable cost. So.
Okay. Any questions, comments? I'll move that we approve and execute the contract with Boston Sign Company in the amount of $17,250.25 for the fabrication of cultural wayfinding signs. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green. Aye. Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you so much.
Okay. The other Mr. Ward. This is Fire Department reserve fund transfer in the amount of $345,426 for expenses associated with overtime pay. Mr. Ward.
You can see I'm just asking for a little more than the previous one.
Times 10.
Just
No,
a little
times 20.
short this year. I also want to point out it was the other chief's final budget, not mine. I think you know by the memo that we signed a new contract. There was a provision in there to allow 5 members off per day. That combined with the number of retirements and resignations we had this year, we had 11 retirements, 4 members resigned. All that combined caused a uptick in the overtime budget, and that's why I'm here.
Mr. Chairman, could I just say that we have attempted to resolve this in the FY18 budget. In fact, we feel we have by appropriating additional funds to cover these costs. But I will say that, you know, it's going to take maybe a year or two to right size it and figure it out. We hope that this will be sufficient for fiscal 18. We know it's sufficient for fiscal 17 to close the books. But it's one of those things that you really can't precisely predict. And so you may be hearing about this again. But we're going to do our best to cover it in fiscal 18.
Okay. Questions or comments? I'll move that we approve and transmit to the advisory committee the request of acting chief Robert Ward for a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $345,426.00 for expenses associated with overtime pay. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, stay here and do the next.
So the next item is 2 vacancies, captain and lieutenant.
Yes, I'm sorry, we had a captain retire on June 29th, so we'd like permission to promote a captain and a lieutenant.
And that's the backfill.
Right.
Okay. Any questions? This is done pursuant to the civil
Civil
service
service
lists.
list,
and, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Questions, comments from the board? I'll move that we authorize the filling of 2 vacancies in the fire department, 1 captain, 1 lieutenant. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
A couple of quick items, and then we'll get to the big personnel item. So the next item is library personnel. I don't see Ms. Lyman. Is anyone here from the library? I think this is a pretty straightforward request. So this is for a branch supervisor, librarian 3. Is there anything to add? And it's replacing a employee who went to a different position. Any questions, any reason to hold this? Just move it forward.
I just want to make a statement. I assume that, of course, the library will take all measures to ensure diversity of pool. I'd like to just note that the current employment numbers of the library are 73% white employees, 8% black employees, 13% Asian, and 6% Hispanic. Relative to the racial makeup of our town, that's, those are very good numbers. So, but still, I think, to the extent that we can ensure that the pool is diverse and we get really the best person for this particular position, better off we are. So.
Okay. Okay, so I'll move that we approve the library department vacancy for branch supervisor, librarian 3. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Now, I don't see anyone here for recreation.
Mr. Faison's going to handle the next 2.
Okay.
This is the vacation summer period, so
Yeah.
trying to fill in when we can.
So this is in the recreation department filling a vacancy for therapeutic recreation therapist vacancy.
That is correct. Position that opened up, and Director Paradis is around but is currently tied up, but needed this authorization to hire to move forward with the position. And it's not a new position.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Again, I'd like to note the racial breakdown of the employment. I mean, these numbers don't mean anything very precisely, but it does indicate that, there has been an effort to make sure that the employment in the Recreation Department is fairly diverse. 65% of recreation programming, white, 12% black, 12% Asian, 10% Hispanic. And with respect to Recreation Administration, numbers a little lower, but still respectable. 82% white, 4% black, 0% Asian, and 14% Hispanic. So, just for the record.
Now that do we have any additional questions from Ms. Paradis?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple. Hi. Is this a full-time position? What does this position exactly do?
Yes, this is a full-time position, and this person is the recreation therapist, the community rec therapist for the entire town. Incorporates all of our inclusion and adaptive programs, runs all of the Special Olympics, and and with all the volunteers incorporated, and also ensures inclusion and adaptive ability for all of our programs and facilities.
Okay. Any other questions?
You mentioned UNH, University of New Hampshire, BU, Springfield College, and some other abbreviations I don't know, as where you're going to go recruiting for this position. Do those colleges have specialized programs for disabled individuals?
They do. They have actual certificate programs that have both undergrad and graduate degree programs in Certified Therapeutic Recreation Specialist, which is CTRS, is a designated certification that this person would need to have.
Okay. Ready? I'll move that we authorize the filling of the therapeutic recreation therapist vacancy in the Recreation Department. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. And the last of these positions is the Assistant Director, Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. Thank you, Ms. Paradis. Sorry.
Good evening. This one I was actually planning on doing. So Dr. Gelino can't actually be with us tonight. This position is actually for the Assistant Director. Christian Solkit has unfortunately gotten another position, is moving on from working for the town. So some very big shoes to fill in that regard. But Lloyd is looking to hire quickly and continue some of the good work that they're doing in the department.
And I wish Ms. Chan Selkett the best, and I think we'll miss her as a town employee, but she will continue as a town volunteer. She's a resident of the town, a town meeting member, member of the Women's Commission,
Library trustee.
And on the library trustees. Gosh, how can I?
She has 3 children in the schools.
Right, or about to be in the school.
About to be.
Yeah. So any questions?
Other than to say it's going to be a difficult shoes to fill, I'm sure you'll be able to find someone, maybe not as great as Chris, but who can do a really good job there.
Sure. Okay, so I'll move that we fill the Assistant Director vacancy in the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next item is the appointment of a fire chief. Mr. Ward, the other Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chairman, it is my pleasure this evening to recommend for your approval the appointment of Robert Ward as Chief of the Brookline Fire Department. As you know, Mr. Ward has been serving as acting chief for an extended period of time. Time flies, but it's been over a year since former Chief Paul Ford retired. Robert Ward began his service with the Brookline Fire Department 34 years ago. During that time, he has been promoted through the ranks based upon his leadership and capacity to assume command. He was promoted in 2011 to Chief of the Operations, where he became responsible for much of the management and administrative duties of the department. He is active in professional fire chief organizations both in Massachusetts and nationally, and is active in emergency preparedness activities throughout the Boston region. He has been a member of Brookline's retirement board for many years and is active at the state level on issues facing local retirement systems. Rob is a graduate of Brookline High School. He attended Northeastern University. He has received numerous certifications and recognition throughout his career. Most recently, the town received the highest property insurance rating possible, due in large part to the capacity and performance of the fire department. As it turns out, this appointment will be relatively brief, as Mr. Ward has decided that he will retire from municipal service in late 2017. Nonetheless, it is appropriate at this time to remove the acting from his title and appoint him fire chief for the remainder of his tenure. I want to assure the board and the community that this action has no impact upon Mr. Ward's compensation, benefits, or his future retirement allowance, but is the right thing to do for Mr. Ward, for our fire department, and the town of Brookline. So in conclusion, I recommend the appointment of Robert Ward as fire chief of the town of Brookline effective immediately. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Well, this is appointment of a department head, and especially one of our public safety departments is a big occasion. So why don't we do the official vote first, and then we can talk a little. Okay. So I will move that we appoint Robert Ward as our fire chief. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So you are now officially our fire chief. So I'll start with congratulations, and this is an expression of the confidence that the board has in you and in the fire department as a whole. The fire department has been there for us. We depend on the department. We depend on you to be the first responders. You and the rest of the department have served with distinction. The community has confidence in our department. The board has confidence in our department, and we know you'll carry on this tradition. So, congratulations.
I will echo everything that the chair said. I will thank you for your long service to the town. 34 years is a long time to be here, and I am especially proud that a member of the Brookline High School Alumni Association is rightfully at the top of the org chart in the fire department. And I'm sorry to see you go. You've clearly had a distinguished, lengthy career here in Brookline. I will wish you bon voyage and good luck in your next adventure. He's still got a couple of months, I know, but I want to start the chorus of congratulations. So thank you, and I look forward to the next 4 months of working with you as the chief of the department.
Thank you. I'm going to hold the congratulations on your retirement until it actually happens. Hopefully it might take a little longer than you think, and we'll be the beneficiaries of that. Again, thank you for your terrific service to the town and your willingness to step up and do this difficult job and be in the limelight and have a tough situation in terms of all the different directions that you're pulled in and your managerial duties. So I think we owe you a round of thanks, and hope that you're going to stick around as long as possible. Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you for your service, and just warn you that there will be a lot of things coming up in the next few months, and I'm sure that you can handle them in ways that will make the town as well as this board proud. I'd also like to sort of point out you're a graduate of Brookline High School. I think it's very important that we see the high school as a source of recruitment for members of both the fire department and police department and other departments.
Definitely.
And I think that that's a good model for the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you very much, and also say that, you know, I moved to Brookline because I feel very safe living here. And it's also very nice to know that, you know, you've had a long history and that we've been able to kind of reward your loyalty by staying here and providing such a dedicated service to the town. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to say a few words?
No, really. Just thank you.
Okay. Do some fun.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, and we now have some police promotions. Superintendent Morgan, come on up. Tell us about who's being promoted. We have 4 promotions.
Yes, Superintendent Morgan, Brookline Police Department, here tonight to ask you to promote 4 current sergeants and officers to a lieutenant and sergeant. We're looking for 2 promotions to sergeant and 2 promotions to lieutenant. The first person I'm requesting is Sergeant Michael Raskin to lieutenant. Sergeant Michael Raskin was appointed to the police department in 1986. He worked in the patrol division until August of 1994 when he was promoted to sergeant. As a sergeant, he worked patrol, identification, in the community service division while playing a large role in our emergency management activities. Sergeant Raskin graduated from Brookline High School, obtained his undergraduate degree from Boston College, and then he got his master's degree from Anna Maria College. It should be noted that Sergeant Raskin also, while attending Boston College, worked in a volunteer capacity for the Brookline Police Department doing non-law enforcement functions, and I think that he determined at that time this was a career path he'd like to take, and he's involved in community service while a student at Boston College. We appreciated that. The second nominee to be promoted from sergeant to lieutenant is Sergeant Jennifer Pastor. Sergeant Pastor was appointed to the department in June of 2000. Upon graduation from police academy, she worked nights in the patrol division. In October 2002, she was assigned to the community service division, where she served as a safety officer in the schools. In June 2005, she was assigned to the detective division, where she worked as an intel analyst, and she was promoted to sergeant in 2011. Sergeant Pastor is a graduate of Brookline High School, received her bachelor's degree in sociology from Union College in New York, and her master's degree in criminal justice from Western New England College. Sergeant Pastor resides in Brookline with her family. It's been noted that Sergeant Raskin and Sergeant Pastor both competed on the civil service promotional test. They were both tied for the #1 position on that promotional exam. For the promotions from patrol officer to sergeant, well, first is Robert Tian. Patrolman Officer Tian was appointed as a police officer in May of 2003. He attended the Lowell Police Academy, and upon his graduation was assigned to the Patrol Division, where he's currently working now. He works in Sector 3, which is the area of North Brookline from Harvard Street to Cleveland Circle and from Beacon Street almost over to Commonwealth Ave. Throughout his career, he has earned a reputation as a thorough, thoughtful, and hard-working professional police officer who enjoys engaging with members of the community. As a result, he has been awarded a number of commendations for excellent police work, to include Police Officer of the Year. That was in 2015. Officer Tian resides in West Roxbury with his family. The second officer requesting to be promoted from patrol officer to sergeant is Patrol Officer John Caney. He was appointed to the police department in January of 1994. Officer Caney is currently assigned to the traffic division after working in patrol. Officer Caney has received extensive training in motor vehicle accident investigation and reconstruction, and has been responsible for investigating many of our serious accidents, including fatalities. He holds an ACTA certification, which is very highly sought after to get, and a lot of training and experience goes into achieving that certification. Patrol officer is a graduate of Capital Memorial High School. He receives his bachelor's degree in law enforcement, as master's degree in criminal justice administration from West New England. Officer Caney also currently resides in Brookline. And Officer Tian did also graduate from Brookline High, if I left that out. This time, we're requesting that you make those 4 promotions, 2 from the rank of sergeant to lieutenant, and 2 from the rank of patrol officer to sergeant. Also noted that Officer Caney and Officer Tian were both also tied for #1 on the competitive exam for that promotion to sergeant.
Okay. So what I think we'll do is let's do the formal vote, and then we can all talk. Okay, so I will move that we authorize the following promotions within the police department. Sergeant Michael Raskin to lieutenant, Sergeant Jennifer Pastor to lieutenant, Patrol Officer Robert Tian to sergeant, and Patrol Officer John Caney to sergeant. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Heller.
Aye.
Selectman Green.
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So you're now officially promoted.
Could the officers please come forward here, and we'll do a pinning. I know you've selected people to pin your new badges on you, and again, we'll take some photographs, please. Who's ever doing the pinning, please step forward. Mike, can you guys all line up, please? A row, yeah. Dress right dress.
Well, why don't we do the pictures and then just congratulate them.
If you didn't know us, Lieutenant Pastor and Sergeant Caney are brother and sister, so the mother's there. She has to do double duty. Take the picture of the police commissioners now. Police commissioners can come forward and we'll take some pictures with our runners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we have. So why don't we can move that one. So we can move that one. We'll move Mr. Lepton up. And just tell Joe. Yeah. Okay. So we now have a noise bylaw public hearing. Mr. Faison, can you get Mr. Ditto? We're running about a half hour late from our posted. Mr. Ditto, this is the noise bylaw waiver, 728 to 830 Boylston Street. National Grid.
National Grid. So they're looking for a waiver of the bylaw. Presently, they're working under a permit from the Mass DOT, which restricts them, I believe, from 10 to 2.
Correct, 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m.
And it's really a shallow time frame there that by the time they mobilize and demobilize, they don't have much left in between. So they're looking for a waiver of the bylaws, similar to what they're doing on Beacon Street outbound as we speak. I had one, got caught in the traffic during the day, so I support this waiver of the bylaw and probably attach the same conditions we did on the Beacon Street one, which is no jackhammering after 9 o'clock or saw cutting after 10 o'clock. That seemed to work out pretty well. But John Bacchus is from National Grid. He's here to answer any questions that you might have.
So 728 to 830 Boylston, do we have close residential abutters there? I'm trying to picture it.
There is, yes. There's approximately 10.
So
What is
this by Reservoir Road?
It is Reservoir Road down to roughly the Elliott Heath Street.
Okay, yeah.
80%
So
of
there's
the-
some three-deckers.
Yeah. So 80% of the work is in the inbound direction. There's approximately 1,400 feet left of gas main to be replaced. As Mr. Ditto mentioned, it's a state Mass DOT permit. The state permit allows us to work during the day, and they also have permitted us to work at night from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So National Grid and our contractor, Feeney Brothers, would have a little bit of a problem trying to abide by the jackhammering rule of no jackhammering after 9 and no saw cutting. If we did something like that, we'd have to
scatter the shifts. It's one crew that works there. We'd have to, basically right now what you have is you have asphalt, approximately 10 to 12 inches. We saw cut, and then underneath the asphalt is a sub-base of concrete. The saw doesn't cut through the concrete, so they bring in a machine called the hoe ram. It looks like a backhoe, and what it does is it breaks through the concrete, and then they're eligible to dig. So it'd be very difficult to go under that restriction, and I understand, you know, your concern about that. So I myself, for National Grid, would ask that, you know, after 11 o'clock, there'd be no jackhammering. So that way they'd have a couple of hours to be able to get out there and break up what they could and then dig. We could go out there, you know, work a couple days, do what we could with breaking it up, and then go out there at night. But we're going to try to do that anyways when it comes to the services and the connections. It's a very difficult area to try to get some work done. Right now, the time frame would probably be about 2 months out there if we were able to work nights. The way it's going now during the day is more like 4 to 5 months. And again, we are permitted through the state for the time frames, but we need the noise bylaw waived so we could work out there at night. We had to have some interaction with the residents that are out there. They've been very cooperative with us out there. There's been some interaction because we're going to have to do their services and doing mockouts and stuff like that. And from what I was told from the supervisor, he wasn't able to make it tonight, but he did say that most of the comments that have been done has said, you know, we wouldn't have bought a house on this road if we were worried about the noise. And I get it, at nighttime they might complain, so.
They will.
Yeah, so, and again, I didn't mention that to Peter earlier, that I'd be asking for 11 o'clock, so that's on me, it's not on Peter.
Why are you limited to 4 hours a day?
Rush hour.
Rush hour on the inbound, we can't get out there until 10:30 a.m. The state restricts us a lot on a lot of our permits when we're on state roads. Most of the time, it's 9 o'clock start time, but on this Route 9, it's 10:30 start. And they're pretty strict.
2:30 a.m., that seems early, 2:30.
Yeah, you're not getting much time, you know, by the time you set up, you're breaking it down. So they're averaging about 100 feet a week in gas main. So we hope if we could get nights, we'd get about 240 to 280 a week. So you're more than doubling it.
Could you explain where this is precisely? I think maybe we were talking
Yeah,
earlier.
I actually have
wasn't listening.
I have a couple of maps. They're small, but it goes from Reservoir up to the Heath and Elliott intersection, just about. I only have 4.
We'll share.
It's the highlighted area. I have a bigger scale. I do have a bigger scale if you want me to hold it up. And I do have one more copy if someone needs it. So 2 of the connections are across in the outbound lane. We could probably do those during the day. One of the connections is at the inbound lane. We'll probably try to get that done at night.
I mean, the 2:30 doesn't make so much sense to me, because it's an inbound lane, and, you know, at 2:30, everybody's coming out.
Yeah, it would be great. We did try to, you know, get some leeway with that, an extension. The extension that we have is the night. So they did give us the night. But then, you know, in some towns, there's not the noise bylaw, you know, so the state's not looking at it like that. This is them, you know, this is how they're going to give it to us. So unfortunately, our hands are tied with what we have. We can continue doing the work that we have. We're just asking that we get this approved so we can try to, there's been some bad traffic out there, even when we're out there during the day. And that's why the permit is at 9 p.m. also.
How many of these structures are residences that would be affected by your jackhammering? Do you have any sense of that?
So it really depends on, because it's a pretty wide street, it really depends on how much jackhammering we would be doing and where in the area. If we're at one end, you're not going to really necessarily bother the residents down the other end. But again, we try to do work at like 100 feet a night to, in that general area. They could probably get out there in the night, start breaking it up, shut it down, and then dig. And then the next night, start again right away, breaking it up, putting their road plates down, and working on that. I think we learned our lesson when we were out on Beacon Street with jackhammering and stuff like that. And since I've come back to you regarding that noise bylaw, I think everything's been going good. We did get one call. There was actually a tweet about, jackhammering. That was actually in that area, but it was for an emergency. It had nothing to do with the project there. So I think the crew is, they're going to obey the bylaws on what you restrict us to. It's also the same company, Feeney Brothers, working for National Grid, that's doing the work.
Selectman Hamilton.
How many hours do you suspect you'll need? I mean, will you go from 11 to 5 a.m.? Like how many nights out of the potentially 2 months to 4 months?
So the permit is starting at Sunday night at 9 p.m. So Friday night, you would not have us out there.
Yeah.
On most nights, what happens is they would like to work straight through the night.
Yeah.
But if they hit a barrier where they can't continue working because they might have to jackhammer or something like that, or they're going to have to bring in the vacuum truck or something, they'll have to cut it early. So
Right.
I would have to say that every night we'd want to work the full night into
Okay.
the morning. So yes.
So 11 to 5 a.m. for 2 straight months?
So actually starting at 9
Yeah.
p.m. and working until 5 a.m. for
The
roughly 2
noisy
months.
part is from 9 to 11, is what you're saying.
Depending on what we call noise, yeah. So
Yeah.
the jack,
Noisiest.
the noisiest, the jackhammering and the saw cutting.
Still got the backup beeping.
You'd still have the backup, and we've had this discussion before. I've met with the board before, so I know the complaints that will happen. I'm available for any questions. My cell phone number is always available. We're just asking that we could get out there at night, and then again, if we can work during the day, we're going to try to work during the day. But, everything has to come safety first. It's a busy street, so if they're working during the day, most likely they're not going to work throughout the whole night. Maybe they work through the whole night, and then they go into the daytime for, a couple of hours, the limited time that they're allowed to work out there.
How good are your surveys? Like, do you anticipate finding anything unexpected?
Well, our surveys for National Grid in this area are pretty good.
Okay.
The other stuff that could be possibly in the area, drainage, MWRAs in the area.
Former Mass Highway.
Yeah, so you have a lot of stuff that could be there that is not known, or not supposed to be there, that shows up. So they haven't ran into too many problems like that, but that's also because they're working in such small areas, they're not getting that much production. So we would hope that we don't run into too many more
And
obstacles.
where do you stage your equipment during the rush hours?
I apologize, I don't know where they're staging their equipment on this project.
Okay,
do
I was just
apologize,
curious.
yeah.
Now, when you select a 100-feet section
Yep.
of road to work on, is it possible to identify residences that would be affected by that and give them at least notice of, the fact that you're...
We could try something like that.
Sometimes, it's more of the fact that people think that they haven't been warned.
Yeah.
They may have been warned, weeks ago, but...
Understood, yeah, we could do something like probably the best way for us would to be do something like a door knocker. We could put a door knocker on their door, Some people don't use their front door, some people use their back door and stuff like that, but we could do something like a door knocker, just to notify them that we're gonna be working, in your area tonight.
I think that's a great idea. I would encourage you to take a liberal view of what an abutter is, given that it's the summer months and windows
Yeah.
are probably open.
Yeah.
And this is a part of town where I think noise carries a little bit, so.
Right, yeah, no, we could definitely have somebody go out, and we could, if I have to go out myself with somebody and make sure that we let them know that we're going to be working. We did send out, as normal, we did send out letters, and we also took out an ad in the newspaper that we would be here tonight. I didn't receive any phone calls or anything like that regarding this. Sometimes I get one or two. Tonight I didn't receive any for this one project.
So just to reiterate, I think you're doing basically the same thing on Boylston Street that you've been doing on Beacon Street, which is to.
Correct, yeah, very similar.
Abandon the cast iron pipe, I'm assuming it's cast iron?
This one here is the steel pipe.
Steel.
Yeah, there is some cast iron, there's some steel, and there's some plastic in there.
And you know of leaks in this area?
There's several leaks in that area. That's why sometimes you might see a National Grid crew themselves, an in-house crew, working in that area on the opposite side of the street, working on a gas leak. So,
So overall, this is going to make the situation better in terms of that.
yeah,
and
Brookline's an
anything we have to go through.
Brookline's an old town with some old pipe in it, and we're doing the best we can. We have a lot of work, and I've explained that before. There's a lot of work in Brookline.
When are you going to finish on Cypress Street?
Cypress Street is, we get one project on Cypress Street, and the next thing you know, there's another project down a little ways.
You guys have been there for
For years.
year.
Yeah, that's a long project. I can follow up on the Cypress Street project, but I know they were on one end and they've moved down the other end a little bit. There's a lot of services there, there's a lot of tight houses there, there's a lot of work there. But won't you be happy when we're gone?
Yeah, we will. Not that we love seeing you, but we
Mutual.
don't. Is there any public comment on this noise bylaw waiver? Now's your time, or forever hold your peace.
And I will always say, we don't, none of the crews want to work at night. They would much rather be home at night also, so. We tried to work during the day there, and talking with Peter about this job this is probably our best option.
So comments from the board?
I feel like 11 is a little bit too late on a summer evening. I would be willing to go to 10:30, but at least psychologically for me, 11 just is a little bit too late into the evening.
But the problem is that this is dealing with problems that need to be fixed. And and if they can't get the work done in 2 hours, doesn't seem much of a stretch, really. If they could start earlier, it would be great.
Yeah,
But
again.
you don't have the permission from the state, so that sort of hamstrings us. So I don't know, I think if residents understand that you're fixing gas leaks and you want to be out of there as soon as you can also, you're probably grateful. I mean, in addition to the environmental impact, there's the safety issues. So, I don't know, I think just better to get it done.
And I do understand, especially on a summer night, people have their windows open, some people have their air conditioners on, give or take. 10:30, 11. 11 would be definitely better because it takes a half hour to set up that roadway, and with it being night, it could take even longer to set up that roadway because of the lights and stuff like that you're going to have to set up, the extra cones, the extra.
And also, hopefully, if you could, the door knockers will help and alert people to when you're going to be doing this so that, they can maybe switch their vacation plans and
Yeah.
be gone.
And again, we can also look at trying to do some of this work during the day, and maybe if we can break open that street during the day and then go to a night shift, if we can have that flexibility to be able to do that, and, that let them know that, okay, maybe we're going to work, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at night, and then Monday, Tuesday during the day doing the braking and stuff like that. I don't know if that's the way it will be, but I can talk to the supervisor and the supervisor from Feeney Brothers and see if maybe we can That way there's more breaking of the concrete during the day. Sometimes we hit these thinner stretches where the concrete's not as thick and the saw can cut through it. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes we hit 18 inches of asphalt. It's amazing what you can find out there when you start cutting into the roadway. Years and years of asphalt, you know. But I can definitely talk to both supervisors. We can definitely talk about doing the door knockers or letters to the doors, to the abutters, making it a little bit wider than normal, and making sure that people are aware that we're going to be making some noise into the nighttime. But I would definitely ask for 11 o'clock, no earlier than 11 o'clock. And I know.
I mean, I'm inclined to say 11 o'clock also, but also with the door knockers and the other steps.
Sure.
One question that, from a totally non-expert person, I mean, is there any sound buffering technologies that, could be available maybe in the future or even now that could bring down the decibel level?
Yeah, they used to have, when accidents, they tried something years ago with accidents, and it was also going to work as a sound buffer when, everybody has the rubbernecks when they see an accident across the other side of the highway, and they had these inflatable things that would pop up, and they don't work. And that was from years ago, and I don't see anything now unless it's a permanent structure. So, but it would be nice. It would be, and then again, it would have to be a large, large barricade,
So I think, any other comments? So I think I'll put a motion out there, and then if anyone wants to amend it, you can amend it, and then we'll see how the votes go. So I will move that we grant the noise bylaw waiver to National Grid in connection with the work on a gas main replacement project between 728 to 830 Boylston Street, with a condition that there be no jackhammering or saw cutting after, I'll say 11, and then we can amend it, with notification of abutters in the immediate vicinity of that day's work through means such as door knockers, is that what they're called? The door hangers.
Yeah, notification, door notification.
Door notification,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know if I'd be able to get door knockers
Right.
within that timeframe.
Door notice. So it could be a hang tag or,
something to the door, put
Right.
it in their mailbox,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep. So that's my motion. Anyone wish to amend the motion? Okay.
By the way, the mailbox would be illegal, I think. So stick them on the door.
We'll stick them on the door.
Okay, so the motion is on the table. It's with no jackhammering or saw cutting after 11. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you very much, Board, thank you.
I'm going to move move an item in the agenda back 2 places, and that's the CDBG one-year action plan. And I'm going to go to the change of manager on the application of Anastasi Brookline, doing business as Brookline Fine Wine and Spirits. Tezo Gian. Oh, you're gonna. Oh, okay. Owner, holder of license to expose, keep for sale, sell all kinds of alcoholic beverage license, and this is 27 Harvard Street for a change of manager from Joseph Ferraro to Matthew Switkus. And you are?
Matthew Switkus.
Good, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
I understand you were at the wrong meeting last time.
Yes, I sat through the planning and building meeting for a beautiful hotel going up. Learned all about it, got all the information to tell you all about all the material they're using, and realized that it was the meeting up here, not there. But we switched rooms, so I thought it was the right room. They didn't hand out an agenda. didn't realize I was not in the right meeting, but I'm here today.
So, okay, well, I'm glad you made it to the right meeting tonight, and I apologize if you had anything to do with that. Okay, so this is a change of manager. So you've been through you've been to the police department.
Yep.
And can you tell us some of the Brookline specific rules, especially about the notebook and some of the other things that they told you?
Not about the notebook, but definitely tip certified. We check everyone's ID that's coming into the facility. We make sure to only serve alcohol in the hours that we are open and permitted to sell.
Okay, so there is a requirement for a notebook, right?
For a logbook.
Logbook.
I think is what I saw, yeah.
And kinds of things that go in the logbook?
Not familiar with the logbook now.
So you've got to keep the tip certification
Yep.
of all
Right.
people who are working in the establishment.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got to keep a record of any underage patrons who try and come in and purchase alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a record-keeping document.
Sure. We have the tip certification on file in the folder, as well as any of the permitting or licenses, and we do track anything that comes up.
Okay, and you're aware that we do stings, so we take underage, selling to underage patrons very, very seriously.
Yes.
And we hope never to see you
Right.
In this forum for those kinds of things, because they're not very pleasant.
Yes, not at all. We
That's-
try, we ID every
That's where we
single
get to
person.
yell at you.
Yeah, totally understand.
And the logbook is monitored or checked every once in a while.
Right.
So I think that means that you need to really be on top of what goes into that logbook and how it's required to be kept.
So if I'm not mistaken, there's two different types of stings that we do. There's the underage patron sting, and there's administrative inspections as well, where we'll come in and make sure you've got the 5 or 6 signs that the ABCC requires to be posted. We'll look at the logbook. We'll make sure that people's tip certification is up to date. So it's another reason, failure to keep that logbook is another reason you can end up back here facing us for potential disciplinary action.
Sure, understood.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this change of manager? I see none. Any other comments, questions from the board?
I just want to reiterate that carding everyone is a very good policy.
Thank you.
I really could be 18.
We don't mind asking you for ID. As long as you have it on there, we can sell you.
Okay, so I will move that we approve the application of Anastasi Brookline doing business as Brookline Fine Food and Fine Wine and Spirits, Tazo Giannopoulos?
Tasso Giannopoulos.
Tasso, okay. Owner, holder of license, keep to expose, keep for sale, to sell all kinds alcoholic beverages, retail package goods store, 27 Harvard Street, for a change of manager from Joseph Ferraro to Matthew Switkus. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We're going to take the board and commission interview, and this is Mr. Lepson wanting to join the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations Commission. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you.
Okay, so tell us what draws you to this commission.
A whole host of things actually draw me to the commission. I would say that I probably got interested in sort of some of these goings-on in the town having to do with, and you probably know this well from me at this point, things going on with firefighter Alston and Officers Pilot and Officer Z and those whole goings on, and sort of put my antenna up as something that was very important, very critical that's happening here. I think the last time I stood before you and had a public comment along those lines. I was asked, had I read the Lamke report, had I taken a look at some of those documents, and at the time I hadn't done that, and subsequently I have certainly done that, and I have a much better perspective as to what you folks were dealing with and some of the things that were going on above and beyond what appears at the surface. So that's kind of sort of what started things for me. And then the election last fall also sort of put my antenna up and got my radar going a bit, and I said I have to get involved. I have to start to do things as opposed to just sit on the sidelines and act quietly and complain. And so I said, okay, what is it that can I do? And I started hearing about the Sanctuary City Working Group, and I started attending those meetings on a very regular basis and contributing as a member of the public. I ran for town meeting, knocking on doors, introducing myself to the folks in Precinct 9, and feel very much like I want to be involved. And the commission feels like a really solid place for me to contribute and to help make this town as a welcoming a place as it can be.
I must say, you wrote a very compelling statement of interest for the commission. So it's very well done.
Thanks. I perseverated over it for about 48 hours and changing it, and my wife finally said, just send it in, just send it in. I said, okay, I will do it, I will do that.
And and I'll also say, I remember your public comment, and I thought you handled yourself very well, and it spurred a very interesting conversation that I still remember. So that was.
Well, that's I guess that's what we're trying to do here is have conversations and work cooperatively in order to move the town and everything that goes along in the right direction for the benefit of everyone.
Any questions from the board?
I would agree that your application is certainly complete, and it seems to me that you have a unique perspective as well because of your own experiences with your raising a child with a debilitating issue. That's, I think, something that is always a good experience to bring to a situation like this, because you have the experience to understand what it's like.
The challenges and the barriers, yes. Absolutely. That, and yeah, his situation it's not visible, and so he can walk around and people don't know what's going on, but the struggle that he faces every single day and has done and has faced for several years running, it's pretty remarkable, and he inspires me, and we continue to do what we can to try to help facilitate his growth and his independence.
I sort of relate to that because I have a child who also has issues but doesn't present them to the outside world, just presents them at home. And the issue of how we deal with people of diverse sort of abilities, ways of reacting to the world, I think is part of the Commission's concerns, because it's those members of our community who many times are excluded or many times run into unfortunate encounters with police. Hopefully not in Brookline, since we have the type of training and proactive response to this that hopefully works. But in other communities, that's not the case. So, do you have any thoughts on specifically how the Commission can address some of those issues?
Sure, absolutely. So one thing that I'm thinking about immediately is, and I'm forgetting her name, but it's Paul Harris's wife is involved with. Pardon me?
Sorry, no, Paul Harris's wife.
Yeah.
Maybe Clint. Yeah.
Who is, I know, involved here in Brookline and in other towns, providing training to police departments to try to de-escalate situations as before they really get out of hand. And from my understanding is that about 40% of the Brookline Police Department has gone through that training, and I understand it's voluntary. And so one of the things that I would strongly encourage, and I hear it's very effective, is from what I understand as well, is to try to increase that and to try to promote that. I'm not quite sure why it's only 40% and it's not 50% or 60% or 100%, and why it's not mandatory. I think it's a voluntary type of thing. These are some things that I have to learn about, but you know, something like that I think can be very, very helpful and very effective. I would say that working with and collaborating with other boards and other commissions also, I think, would be very helpful. I know there's the Commission on Disabilities that it's not, does it fall under the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, but it's not part of this commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's obviously collaboration that that can be done along those lines as well. So those are a couple of thoughts that I have.
Any other questions? Okay, so we're not going to be voting tonight, but hopefully in the very near future. Leave it at that. So thank you very much, and thank you for stepping up and welcome.
Well, thank you. I welcome the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Okay,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And for what it's worth, I believe there's another vacancy on the commission, so to those who may be interested in applying.
Yeah, I think there may be, and Kelly, I think there may be two additional openings. So 3 total, and
3 slots.
3 slots, and so.
Okay,
Yes.
anyone who wishes to apply, please do. Okay, thank you. So the next item will be the CDBG one-year action plan.
Oh, yeah.
This is a public hearing. Mr. Viola.
Good evening, Joe Viola, Assistant Director for Community Planning. I just wanted to note to the board, this evening with us is Awana Lindo-Smith, our CD Administrator. I don't know if the board has had the opportunity to meet Awana yet. She spends countless hours managing all of our town grant-related activities, and I'm thankful every day that we were able to hire Awana back in January to work for us full-time. So she makes everything we do much easier, and I'm glad we have her. So, as the chairman mentioned, tonight's public hearings are related to the town's fiscal 18 CDBG annual action plan. As a condition of receiving CDBG funds, the Department of Housing and Urban Development requires that stakeholders, the town in this case, we engage the public and, seek feedback on the use of CDBG funding. To that end, a legal notice advertising the availability of this draft action plan was placed by the planning staff this past May. The notice also included the date of tonight's public hearing to be held by the board. And every year following the HUD's required 30-day public comment period, we asked the board to hold a public hearing on the annual action plan as, a last effort to get any public input and feedback, if any. So at the conclusion of tonight's public hearing, we request that the board approve the annual action plan, and we will request that you authorize the chairman to execute the application for federal assistance and related certifications. I note that the language for the vote that we're seeking is actually on the bottom of page 3 of the CDBG Advisory Committee recommendations to the board. I believe you received that in your packet this evening. The town's annual action plan provides the public and our CPD reps at HUD's Boston office with a the information on how the town proposes to use CDBG funds in the coming year. After tonight's hearing and vote, staff will amend this document to reflect any public comment that we receive, if any, prior to finalizing and submitting the document to HUD. After HUD approval, we can start moving towards some of the other things we need to do, such as putting contracts together, doing environmental review, all things that will be back before the board to discuss with you at a later date. Just briefly, the process for programming grant funds began this past February when staff released a request for proposals for CDBG funds. That's part of our process. We release a competitive RFP. We hear from potential grant recipients. And the town CDBG Advisory Committee, including former Selectman Nancy Daly, who participated with us for many years, reviewed applications and deliberated over funding recommendations at 2 public meetings that we held back in March. To inform the committee's budget deliberations, we were advised by HUD to use level funding, which was equal to the $1,345,000 the town received last year in fiscal 17. The town's actual entitlement, of which we were notified in June, was slightly less. That was $1,327,000. I just note that the activities included in the action plan and also in the recommendations from the committee, those reflect the cut and the committee's recommendations to how to make the cut across all of the items seeking CDBG funding. This year, the committee deliberated on funding requests for projects such as the capital improvements for the Brookline Housing Authorities across a number of developments, as well for a town-sponsored affordable housing project, specifically JCHE's 62-unit senior housing development that'll be built on Temple Kai on Harvard Street. As well, and this is usually the hardest part, the committee members did their best to fully fund all the town's public service activities, keeping in mind that we can only use 15% of our total grant amount to fund those public service activities. So despite the cut, every public service applicant was at least level funded. Nobody got a cut from last year's funding, which turned out to be it's a pretty good outcome, given what could have been the alternative with the CDBG program. So I just wanted to give the board an overview of the process leading up to tonight's public hearing before asking the chairman to open the floor for comments on the annual action plan, if any. And obviously, I'm here to answer any questions for items in the plan or related to process.
Okay, I'll note that the proposal includes 242,000, a little over 242,000 going to the JCHE project, which the town is very supportive of. That's 100% affordable senior housing over at Kehelet, Israel, that has been permitted under Chapter 40B. I'll also note that this is the funding source that the Trump administration has proposed zeroing out. There was an interesting article on the Politico website talking about this program and the funding formula and how the funding formula favors communities with older housing stock and singled out Brookline as one of the highest per capita recipients of CDBG money, comparing us to the city of San Francisco, which receives a total of 12 million. We receive 1.3 million, and the per capita difference is dramatic. It also talked about Newton as another city similarly situated by Brookline. But I understand that Congressman Frank was a staunch defender of this program and the funding source. So I'm sorry to see Congressman Frank is not in Congress anymore to defend it, but I'm hopeful that the Trump administration's request will not be supported by the Congress, but you never know.
So I'll leave adjudication as to whether the funding formula is right or wrong to others.
Right.
I will simply say that this action plan that's in front of us funds some amazing services and enables some amazing projects to go forward. And if we were to lose this funding completely or a significant percentage of it, it would have a tremendous detrimental impact on some of Brookline's most vulnerable residents, and a funding gap that we would, if we chose to, would result in significant cuts to other parts of our operating budget, and the impacts of which would be felt by other Brookline residents. So while we get a large sum of money per capita on a per capita basis compared to others, there is no squandering of those funds here.
Yeah,
this is a tremendously well thought out plan, and one that really benefits, again, some of Brookline's most vulnerable and at need residents.
It is scary to think that that this money could not be available in the future, because it does benefit our most disadvantaged population. So, you know, I think we should keep our eye on this issue and try to figure out what we would do. Not easy to make that kind of money up in the budget, so we have to figure out something.
If I could just add briefly, the first cut of House budget includes CDBG and our home program, two programs that we administer, restored almost to the full amount. And
that's the House?
That's the House. And the national agency who monitors this kind of budget process for us, for entitlement communities, is optimistic that the Senate budget may even restore it to close to what it was last year. So it's looking like it could be another year of at least level funding, which is good news.
It is good
So,
news.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of encourage you to think of Plan Bs. But I think the irony is that the Republican Congress probably will not cut it completely, because if you remember the history, this goes back to the Nixon administration and his efforts to slash federal spending and sort of throw everything on to the states through block grants. And, you know, we took that bitter lemon and made it into something, you know, useful. Hopefully people will remember that history, although people don't. But hopefully someone will, and keep this program going. But it's interesting to look back on the history of, you know, where a program like this actually came from.
So this is a public hearing. Sorry.
The only thing I'll say is, to Ben's point, I mean, Brookline Elder Taxi System, $43,000. We'd be hard pressed to come up with that money if we had to do it within our own budget.
Oh, yeah.
and with respect to public services, I think it is for every dollar in CDBG that's invested, there are $3 of leverage. So it's a program that, when it's included in programs, it leverages other dollars, private, other foundations, or what have you. So it's important to keeping these programs running.
Right. So as I said, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on these items, now is your chance, or forever hold your peace. I see none. Any other comments or discussion from the board? Then I will move as suggested by the CDBG Advisory Committee that we approve the 2018 federal fiscal year 2017 CDBG Annual Action Plan. And I'll also move that we authorize the chair to execute an application for federal assistance SF 424 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and applicable certifications. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Now, we've noticed question of discussing and a possible vote to remand the Babcock Street traffic calming matter back to the Transportation Board. I've specifically stated that tonight we wouldn't be taking public comment and have notified that to a number of people who asked, and they're not here because of that. So, you know, I see folks in the audience, and I think it would be unfair, since I told people that we wouldn't be taking public comment, to have public comment. But we've heard, I guess, a couple of hours of public comment back, I guess, the end of April. Selectman Hamilton didn't have the privilege of hearing it, but...
Oh, I did read the minutes, though.
Right.
And she did receive, I think, probably several emails this afternoon and yesterday and maybe the day
Right,
before.
and we all have, and what's interesting is the emails have been pretty well divided, recommending opposite courses of action. So I think I asked Mr. Kleckner to compile some comments from the board, and he has, out of that, produced a proposed vote. I guess I'll ask Mr. Safer and Mr. Corain just kind of come up, and so perhaps we can engage in a conversation. I believe you folks have seen the proposed motion. I guess I'll read it so everyone can hear it, and then
You have the revised one?
yeah. So it starts with 3 whereases. There was an earlier version with 4 whereases. One of the second whereas in the earlier version has been removed. So it starts out with the Board of Selectmen has voted to reconsider its prior decision to sustain the appeal of the Transportation Board's decision on traffic calming on Babcock Street. And in the second whereas, the Transportation Board did not fully consider the intent and letter of the that's the NFPA, National Fire
Protection Association.
Standards.
I had intended to.
That have become incorporated into state regulations. The board supports the hard work and efforts of the Transportation Board, but feel they must reconsider the plan in light of new information and with further policy direction from the elected Board of Selectmen. Now, therefore, the board votes to remand the matter of the Babcock Street traffic calming matter back to the Transportation Board for further consideration and decision, with the understanding that the following policy direction by the board shall be considered, and these are the things we're suggesting should be considered. 1, consider the implications to fire and emergency medical services and to the impacts on the fire department apparatus and personnel whose location on Babcock Street is subjected to continual travel over the area. And in that regard, I know the Transportation Division now has a dedicated contact with the fire department, so we've established lines of communication that haven't gone as smoothly in the past as perhaps we had wished. So hopefully that should help things. Consider the town's complete streets policy, but also whether exceptions to some aspects of the policy are appropriate under the circumstances. And my thinking there is, we do have a fire station, and we need to maintain the emergency services, and that just has to be a piece of the equation. Consider the impacts on existing parking, but do not take the loss of some parking spaces off the table in order to help facilitate an improved plan. Protect the handicap parking, the existing handicap parking along Babcock Street. Consider bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, including possible alternative bicycle routes adjacent to Babcock Street, for example, Naples Road. Consider the impacts of the new legislative authorization to establish lower speed limits, and to consider various measures to control speed, but do not use physical barriers solely to achieve speed limit conformance. I guess it's certainly my instinct when approaching problems to try and thread a needle, especially when you have competing political interests, and I fully appreciate and understand the Transportation Board's attempt to do that, and having attended at least one of the meetings where you guys were struggling with this issue, I must commend Chairman Safer on the way he conducts his meetings and the way he really listens to the comments from the public and really tries to respond. And I would encourage you to continue in that method. So I guess in that respect, I feel bad dumping this back on you, but I know that you guys will approach it in the same professional manner and taking into account all the possible things that you can. And it's funny, in a private conversation I had with Chairman Safer, I said, boy, the stuff you guys deal with is just too controversial for me. So I guess let me ask, what do you think?
So Josh Safer, Chairman of the Transportation Board. Politically, I think we have to, maybe a little sense of where you guys want to go here might be good, just beyond the broad remand back, because I think that the plan that we had was, from my perspective, I don't know, as ugly as it was the compromise among the political the political forces that we have right now on that subject. Essentially, we can only do two of three things. We can only provide a safe situation for bicycles. If the three things are a safe situation for bicycles, parking, and freedom of movement for the fire engines. I don't know if we can do our freedom of flow for traffic in general, because that's really what that is. I don't know that we can do all three of those. So I think there are some of the view, people who are having difficulty with change and are not really looking downstream to what's going to happen when that West Station gets built at the top of Babcock Street. There are some who would sacrifice the bikes and basically throw the bicyclists to the wolves. Alternatively, if we really now get rid of the aggressive traffic calming measures in order to really control that speed so that it's safe for bicyclists without bicycle lanes, and we put in bicycle lanes instead, then we're going to lose an overwhelming amount of the parking. I can ask Todd if he has statistics, but it's not going to be some of the parking. It's going to be most of the parking. If we take the argument that safety is everything, and we got into, when we were negotiating, it was parking versus bicyclists, and this compromise is the compromise that satisfied those two forces, and those were the strongest two forces. If we switch the argument now, all of a sudden, and say that the speed hump proposal slows the fire engines too much and causes a degree of safety concern, I don't know how big a degree that is, but it's obviously something, And if we say that it's, there's a degree of safety concern there, and then we're also worried about bicycle safety concern, and then parking becomes just a convenience and not a safety concern, and that one can be the one to drop out. But again, it will be significant. No matter what we do, I think it is likely to come back to you. This was the best. I think this was the best compromise, and this got appealed to you. When we go the other way, we're going to go farther off center to one extreme or the other, and it's going to come back to you. So some perspective, or there's risk for it to come back to you. So some risk for some perspective on what you're going to sustain will be useful.
This is mine.
So let me be silent on the bike versus parking question, just because I want to make your job that much more difficult. But to state the obvious, we don't re-engineer streets like this very often. So in my view, this plan, whatever it may look like, should be something that's forward-looking and covers the foreseeable future. You brought up the construction of West Station and some of the work that's going to take place on Beacon Park Yard or the Grand Junction. I'm not sure what it's actually called there, but sort of right against the river, abutting Storrow Drive. My understanding is that not only is there going to be commuter rail there and a multimodal station, including bus rapid transit, potentially with buses traveling down Babcock Street. Now, knowing the MBTA, that'll happen in about 100 or something to that effect. But I'm looking for a plan that forecasts the future and what may be coming down the pike, so we don't find ourselves either having to re-engineer the street again in 5 years or 10 years, and we contemplate future users and how traffic might flow down Babcock Street in the future and who the users might be.
Go for it.
I echo that. I'm looking for something forward-looking. I know that sacrifices will have to be made, and it will be part of our task to shoulder a lot of the political ramifications that happen as a result. I don't have a car, so I'm certainly empathetic to safe streets for all. But I do use a car a lot for work, and I travel down Babcock Street quite a lot. I go the speed limit because it's so bumpy that you don't feel safe going faster than that. But I would like to see something that we can be very proud of as a community and almost point to as, look, we were able to accomplish it here. We might be able to do, very creative solutions elsewhere.
I'll take a little crack here. As you know, I was one of the two who voted not to support the speed humps. We have a fire station on Babcock Street. It's never going to be moved. As far as, I think if you're considering the future, I think you should, we have to recognize that. And we have to take the standards into effect, into consideration for that. After our vote, I had said I would support the situation as it exists on Pond Ave. And I have a lot of occasions to drive down Pond Ave, and I decided to start counting. It's about a half to a six-tenths of a mile stretch, and there are 5 speed humps. And one day, as I was coming from Jamaica Plain toward Brookline Village on Pond Ave, I happened to be passed by or hear the siren of an ambulance coming by, and clearly he was headed toward the hospitals. And he was having to drive very, very slowly. He couldn't even do 20 miles an hour because at the bumps, obviously with somebody in the back and the equipment and the safety stuff he's got on him, you know, he's having to go 3 miles an hour over these humps. And as fast as he tried to go, I ended up being almost ahead of him, even though I was trying to go slowly. And it really taught me that those humps are a significant barrier to our safety personnel and those vehicles. Also, I mean, when you think about the physics of it, obviously a heavy vehicle is got to go more slowly over those things than a sporty little car or a bicycle even. So I think it's really important to take other calming measures into effect. Things like, you know, those flashing signs which tell you how fast you're going. Every time I come up to one of those, I see people slowing down because, you know, they're not sure what it means, or whether a police officer is there, or whether, you know, they just were driving along and not paying attention. But I do think that gets people's attention. It probably doesn't work for everyone, but for some people it will. Signs in the middle of the road, again, they're not going to work for everyone, but hopefully they will slow some people down. Then when it comes to bicycles, I think about my late husband, who was an avid bicyclist. He did it 365 days a year. He practically never used a car. And his strategy was to make sure he cycled on the less used, if you will, and the less busy streets. So instead of going on Babcock, he'd go on Naples, or he would go on Amory Street, or one of the other streets that is not so congested. He hardly went on Harvard, or he hardly went on Beacon or Comm Ave, because those felt less safe to him. And I think that, I know that in other communities, apparently, this is a strategy which they've used to map out a community and streets that are safer for bicyclists. So I think that could be something that the Transportation Board could also look at. It's a tough problem because it's a street that's, you know, not wide enough, let's face it, and there's no way to make it wider because it can't accommodate all users, and the people who, especially those who rely on the handicap parking and have lived in those places for, you know, 30, 40, 50 years, it seems grossly unfair to eliminate those. And in addition, the parking that a lot of those buildings don't have parking associated with them. So people have to park several blocks away or rent a space. And when they have young children and bringing in groceries, or they're bringing their elderly mother home or whatever, they need to be able to park there. And I would think that for the ones that are condos, it will, if we eliminate the parking, it will lessen the value of those units. So that's also a hardship. I mean, and I understand you're caught on the head of a pin here. It's very, very tough. But I do think that all of these things do have to be considered. And we have to figure out how to work it out. I think that if you could divert some of the traffic and some of the bicycles to different streets, there may be some measures to allow different turns. For instance, if bicyclists were going down Naples from Harvard to Commonwealth, it goes all the way, and they needed to make a right turn onto Commonwealth, that's not a problem. If they need to make a left turn, it is more of an issue, so they might have to snake through some other streets, turn on Abbotsford, go up Fuller, to Hamilton and get out to Comm Ave that way. There are also some left turn issues on Commonwealth that need to be looked at, and those, I guess, are state issues. The state controls, because if you come to the intersection of Babcock and Commonwealth, and you're going in town, you cannot make a left turn. It didn't used to be that way.
Naples, you mean?
No, from Naples. If you're going from Naples and you come to Commonwealth and you make a right turn and you want to go left onto Babcock into the Boston part of Babcock, or you want to flip around and go outbound on Commonwealth Avenue, you cannot do it because the rule was changed a few years ago. It's since I've lived there, I know that. So, maybe there's some way to work around that and get the state to cooperate and change the rule, at least for bicyclists. So you have many considerations and a lot of things on your plate, and I wish you luck.
I'd like to agree with you that the proposal from the Transportation Board that we voted on was a reasonable proposal that balanced within reasonable parameters the multiple interests on Babcock Street based on the information we had at that time. Unfortunately, there's a piece of information that came to our attention that we did not know about. We should have, but we did not, or it should have been presented to you regarding the rules with respect to traffic calming on fire station access roads. That's sort of the skunk in this garden party, so to speak, or the problem that we have to work around with respect to all the other interests, is my understanding. I mean, maybe there are some exceptions or ways around those rules, and you'd have to look at that. But that's really sort of what puts us in a corner right now. My only concern is that handicap parking is absolutely important. We cannot take away that from people who need it for just a decent life, as well as life-saving travel, as well as life-saving visits that make use of that handicap parking. So that's one thing that I'm most concerned about. The other issues, I don't see bicycling as having priority over pedestrians, or having priority over vehicles, or vehicles have priority over any of the others. I think we have to look at the entire picture, see what type of compromises can be made, and maybe what type of alternatives for bicycling. I mean, there are no alternatives to pedestrians or vehicles to Babcock Street, but there may be alternatives like Selectman Heller was talking about, alternative routes that can be encouraged, maybe not required, but encouraged for people to use to avoid what, from my in or non-expert standpoint, looks to be a situation that's not going to be very friendly to bicyclists. So we don't have traffic calming on Babcock Street, and the fire station or the fire trucks are zooming down when called, and we have a problem of vehicles exceeding the speed limit. It's not going to be a very pretty situation. So you're the experts. Hopefully you can figure that out, but it's going to be a difficult thing to do.
So I think you heard some perhaps mixed messages. We're 5 independently elected folks, and we all are independent. So
independent thinkers,
right? My thing is not so much with the notion of traffic calming. I guess being a layman in this world, in the traffic world, just the notion of 10 very closely put together these elements just intuitively hits me wrong. But I would have I would have been okay with it if it wasn't for the fire station, and that's what kind of hit me. So, if traffic calming is going to be the solution, is there another way than 10 of these things? So we're not making your job easy. I don't know if what you heard from the group here is going to give you a sense of what's going to get sustained if something comes back to us. So I don't know how helpful that was, but
we have about 10 months, so we could float some balloons. We can pass the things and have them appealed, and we'll see how you vote.
Trial and error.
Do you have anything you want from Todd? Alrighty.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for taking on this thankless task that is essential. Yeah, and I'm being reminded I really need to take the vote, which is as I read, and it's the, unless anyone wishes to offer an amendment. So
Just to spell out the...
Yeah, I made a note. You mentioned that before, I forgot.
Okay, so I'll move that the proposed vote that I read at the beginning be the motion of the board. All those in favor, please say aye. Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Heller?
Aye.
Selectman Green?
Aye.
Selectman Hamilton?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That concludes our business for tonight.
Thank you for coming.
And I think now, what that stands for. That's it.